Whether you've got a new bike, an old bike, a BMX bike, a unicycle, no matter what, you're gonna have to maintain it. But some motorcycles are gonna require a bit more intensive care than others, depending on how hard or frequently you ride and the age and complexity of your machine. But luckily, most basic motorcycle maintenance can be done yourself at home with just a few simple tools. Maintaining your own motorcycle will save you lots of cash, provide you with a more intimate knowledge of the inner workings of your bike, and give you a sense of confidence and accomplishment from doing the job yourself and knowing it was done right. So without further ado, let's explain some basic motorcycle maintenance to help get you well on your way to working on your own bikes. Let's get into it. The first and most paramount piece of motorcycle maintenance that's the easiest is changing your oil and filter. This is considerably the most crucial maintenance item while also being the simplest. It's also the most universal job for motorcyclists because regardless of if you have a brand new motorcycle, a used motorcycle, or even an air-cooled motorcycle, they all use oil and it needs to be changed. Luckily, with advancements in motorcycle engine and manufacturing and synthetic oils, oil change intervals are as long as they've ever been. New motorcycles can have service intervals to go as long as 10,000 miles. But of course, check your service manual or do a quick Google search to find out the specific interval recommended for your motorcycle. Regardless of how long your service intervals are, they always recommend to change it at least once a year at the minimum. Erring on the side of caution never hurts. And for most riders who typically ride about 5,000 miles a year or less, changing your oil and filter once a season is pretty standard, and it's about as simple as it gets. Make sure you buy the correct viscosity and volume of oil, again based on your service manual or the trusty internet, because I'm sure all the forum dads would love to give you all the microscopic details required to change the oil for your given model. You guys ever notice that? How old guys on internet forums write hundreds of words debating the minutia of engine oil on an online forum, but then will just respond to every text message with the single letter K. As well as a new oil filter and a replacement cush washer for the oil drain plug never hurts either. Get your bike nice and warm, take it out for a quick rip around the block just to get the oil warm and eager to drain out. Let the bike rest for 5 or 10 minutes while you gather your supplies. This will ensure all the oil drips down to the bottom of the engine again. Take the cap off the oil fill to allow the air to flow through to prevent a vacuum. Loosen the drain bolt at the bottom of the engine. If your motorcycle was recently serviced at the dealer, that bolt is probably torqued on at 1,000 foot-pounds, so brace yourself for that. Then unthread it the rest of the way with your hand, making sure to not drop it in the drain pan and scald your hand with hot oil. If you're feeling overly cautious, you can set a block of wood beneath your side stand to keep the bike level to try to extract any remaining oil. Doing all this with a rear paddock stand works too and gives you a little bit of extra room to work under the bike. But this isn't rocket science. Don't get too in your head or you'll end up like the oil dads in the forums. Remove the oil filter and let the oil drip all over your exhaust and make a huge mess. Then take a clean shop towel and wipe the inside of the oil filter housing for good measure. Then just do it all in reverse order. Pre-fill the new filter halfway through, put a touch of fresh oil around the entire circumference of the filter gasket, then screw it on by hand. Screw it on until the gasket meets the mating surface, then give it about another half turn or so. It doesn't need to be crazy tight or torqued on with a wrench. Reinstall the oil drain plug with the fresh cush washer. This can be torqued to spec based on your service manual, but usually around 20 foot-pounds or so is good. Don't overdo it. It's a giant pain in the butt to remove that if you strip that bolt. Again, do not overdo this. It's not rocket science. G&T, 20 foot-pounds, it's not going anywhere. Once your new filter and drain plug are reinstalled, refill the oil based on the recommended volume, which is usually a tad less than the maximum capacity, since some of the oil will always stay within the engine. This amount should be easily found in your manual or online. Once you got your fresh oil in, start her up, make sure the oil pressure light goes off quickly, let her run for a bit, make sure you don't see any leaks, then shut it off, wait a minute, check your oil levels in the sight glass or dipstick, depending on what kind of bike you have, and that's it. Your oil is changed, and your dealership's going to charge you like $200 or more to do this. Can you believe that? Do you want to debate the specifics of engine oil with others online? How about nerd out about another motorcycle topic? Maybe ask the advice of elder squids who have yeeted thousands of nooners over the years. Well, I've got the place for you. Our online community at yammynoob.co. We've got a huge community of riders of all types, fast boys, cruiser boys, ADV boys, and more. Bike maintenance, buying advice, and even connect with riders in your local area. Members also get access to exclusive content like weekly live streams and sign up for our hilarious newsletter. If that wasn't enough, yammynoob.co members also get a discount on bike rentals through Twisted Road, a discount on Yammy Noob merch, and automatic giveaway entries to win our current giveaway motorcycle. We recently gave away the BMW S1000RR to a gentleman in California by the name of Jorge, and now currently have a 2024 Suzuki GSX 8R up for grabs. If you like what we do here at Yammy Noob and want to support us directly and get access to a bunch of cool perks, check out yammynoob.co. Thank you so so much to all of our supporters on our community over there. I really appreciate it. Now let's get back to the show. The next most important piece of maintenance is cleaning and adjusting your chain. This actually is required to be done more frequently than an oil change, but delaying it or avoiding it would not be as catastrophic as neglecting to change your oil. But that's not to say it should be neglected, because having a chain break while you're riding can be bad news. Cleaning a chain is really quite straightforward as well. You'll find all sorts of contradicting information about how a chain needs to be cleaned. Some nerds will brag about how they clean their chain after every single ride, which is very excessive. The more accepted consensus is, as long as you're not riding through torrential rain or mucking it up on some serious off-road conditions, cleaning your chain once every 500 miles or so is just fine. Cleaning your chain is easiest when using a rear stand to jack up your rear wheel off the ground and allow you to spin the rear wheel freely with the bike in neutral. You'll just spray down your chain with the chain cleaner, making sure every part is covered, scrub it all with a chain brush, ensuring you get all the nooks and crannies in the entire length of the chain. Some people rinse the chain off with water after, others just wipe it with a shop towel to get all the grime off. If you rinse your chain, let it dry before re-lubing. Then spray on the lube, getting the entire length of the chain, wipe up any excess, and you're good to go. While you're down on the ground, you can inspect the slack in your chain compared to the specs on your swing arm or your manual. If your chain needs to be tightened, loosen the axle nut and adjust the sliders to bring it into spec. Lining up with the notches on the swing arm, lock the adjusters and retorque your axle nut to spec. Super simple maintenance, but it's very important. Keeping your chain clean not just ensures the health of your chain, but your sprockets as well, and everybody loves a good, clean looking chain. While tires don't need to be maintained per se, outside of ensuring proper inflation, which I highly recommend, check your PSI often and regularly. Oh my god, they do need to be inspected and replaced as consumable wear items. The lifespan of motorcycle tires is much shorter than you might think. If you're coming from commuter cars where you can get 50,000 miles out of a set, especially if you live in the south, then you can keep your tires for 100,000 miles since you never have to drive in the snow. Yes, I'm talking to you with the 2014 Nissan Altima that looks like it's running racing slicks and you've been on the same set of rubber since it rolled off the lot 10 years ago. Motorcycle tires, on the other hand, typically have a lifespan from anywhere from as low as 3 to 10,000 miles depending on the type of tire and how you ride. Sport touring tires are going to work a lot better and last quite a bit longer than a super sport tire. If you're doing long stretches on the highway, you'll notice the center of your tire will wear down more quickly. Different tires are made differently with different compounds for different styles of riding. And since there is no hard and fast rule to guarantee how long a tire will last, it is the responsibility of the rider to keep track of the wear to determine the time for replacement. Many tires have wear indicators, or you can measure the remaining tread depth. Most DOT regulations say 1/32nd of an inch is the minimum tread allowed for motorcycle tire. You can also inspect your tire for uneven wear, flat spot gouges, or bulges that will all indicate that a tire is ready for retirement. You like that pun? Even if your tires haven't gotten worn out from mileage, they do start to deteriorate over time too. All tires are stamped with a 4-digit code that indicates the week and year in which a tire was manufactured. This has been a hotly debated topic, but typically a tire that's older than 6 years, depending on how it's stored, very important, will start to deteriorate and lose its efficacy. If the tire was already a year or two old when you bought it, and it was stored on a shelf in a temperature-controlled environment, chances are it won't immediately explode the minute it hits 6 years old. But if you've had the same set of rubber for 6 seasons with less than 5,000 miles on them, sitting on a cold cement floor beginning to dry rot, it's probably time for replacement. Use your brain. If it doesn't look right, don't put it on. And also, that just means you need to ride more. Tires can be replaced yourself if you have the right tools and a whole lot of patience. I made a whole video explaining how to do this. I actually changed my own tires. It's a great thing to do. Saves me a lot of money. Tires can be manually removed from a wheel and installed with tire spoons with soapy water, but it isn't exactly the most fun task. There are consumer-grade tire installing tools like a Rabaconda that makes a massive difference in the ease of installation. But even if you just buy your tires online, take your wheels off your bike and off its stands and take them to a tire shop, they can mount and balance them for you for pretty cheap as well. Brakes are another wear item that are crucial to maintain. This is one that's often overlooked. Brake pads will ultimately need replacement and brake fluid will ultimately need to be flushed, refilled, and bled. The lifespan of your brake pads will also greatly vary depending on how and where you ride and the composition of the pads themselves. But I'd say around 20,000 miles for your front is a fair estimate. But you can visually inspect them to see whether it's time to swap them out or not. Replacing your brake pads is relatively simple, but of course, consult your service manual for specifics in regards to your unique motorcycle. But in short, you'll remove the caliper, remove the hardware that keeps the pads in place, remove the old pads, clean the caliper pistons, compress the pistons back into the caliper to accommodate the new larger pads, and then put it all back together in reverse order. It's actually really not that bad to replace pads. You should not take it to a dealership to do it. You can absolutely do it yourself. It's literally 2 bolts bolts, and a little bit of fiddling with the pads. New pads in, bolt up the hardware, torque everything to spec, and be sure to pump the brake lever to rebuild pressure before you ride off. Test the brake by rolling the bike around in your driveway before tearing off onto the street. Again, this is an oversimplification. This is not a how-to mechanics channel. This is just meant to give you an introductory insight into basic maintenance so you know what to expect when you begin tackling these tasks as well. A service manual is key. Inside, you'll find information on how often to replace your brake fluid, which is usually around every 2 years. Brake fluid goes bad over time as it attracts humidity, which then turns to vapor when the brake fluid is heated and reduces the efficacy of the braking system. To replace your brake fluid, you're going to need a piece of hose that fits onto the bleeder screw of your caliper, an old Mountain Dew bottle with a hole in the top of the lid to stick said hose in the bottom to collect the old fluid, and a wrench with which to open the bleeder screw. You remove the old fluid by pulling it through the bleeder on the top of the caliper by compressing the lever. You add new fluid to the reservoir, pump the lever, open the bleeder screw, close the bleeder screw, pump the lever, open the bleeder screw over and over until you've seen clean fluid and no air bubbles coming out of the hose. And make sure to keep the reservoir topped off as you do this, as not to inadvertently add more air into the system. All this can be accelerated by using a vacuum bleeder as well, which is what I use. And look at your service manual. Brakes are important. I am just a disembodied voice on your computer. This is just the Cliff Notes version. And lastly, it is important to monitor your coolant. Fresh coolant will ensure your bike will maintain proper temperature and not get the cooling system all gunked up. Coolant's gonna last for a long time too, so if you always move through new bikes fairly quickly, you might not ever have to worry about changing coolant yourself. But you should be at least able to check it for proper level. Coolant usually doesn't need replacement for about 20,000 miles, but check your service manual. If your coolant is old and needs replacement, it is a relatively straightforward process. Allow your bike to cool, drain out the old coolant, flush the system with distilled water if it was particularly crusty, refill with the proper type and volume of coolant. Let the bike run for a few minutes as to remove any air from the system, and top the coolant to the proper level if necessary. Some motorcycles have bleeder valves in the coolant reservoirs to aid in this process, but it's usually pretty easy to let the bike run to do a little bit of work to air out the system. Kind of burp the coolant out there. If you got a new bike, the coolant isn't something you have to worry much about beyond checking the level every so often. But if you just picked up a used motorcycle, flushing and replacing the coolant is a pretty straightforward task to ensure your motorcycle is up to snuff. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope this gave you the confidence to start working on your own bike. Motorcycles are pretty straightforward with basic tools and service manuals. Just about anyone should be able to tackle these projects with ease. If I can do it, you can do it. Be sure to subscribe if you like this type of content, and I will catch you guys later. Fact: the electric chair was invented by dentist Alfred P. Southwick in the late 19th century, inspired by an accidental electrocution that he witnessed. Dark and twisted mind. Goodbye.
Keep watching Yami Noob.